Hey everybody! Welcome to the Chicago Burlington and Quincy Railroad and the Chicago and Northwestern Railway in Wyoming. Today is August 3rd, 2023. This is Layout Update number 45. I'm Mark Pruitt, Crew Caller. July was a month that I focused on just a few things. The major job of the month was building the Grable track work. I addressed part of my operating rolling stock shortage by building a total of 13 freight cars and getting them onto the layout. I also got the Douglas backdrop assembled and printed out. I built more of the long lead to west staging out of Grable, and I spent an hour or so working on the scenery behind Rocky Mountain drilling. We ended last month with some work on the lead to west staging. I spent some time right after the last update video on Grable trackage and rolling stock construction, but we'll get to those later. Let's continue with the west staging lead for now. I'm not a big fan of the 4 cars behind the big boy look you occasionally see on some model railroads. I want trains to be somewhat more proportional to the size of their motive power. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing if this is your thing. Who am I to say if it's right or wrong? It's just not my cup of tea. For that reason, my layout is designed for a maximum train length of 24 cars plus way car. My 210-2 will handle that size train into Casper from east staging, with Mikado's 282s handling trains up to 20 cars plus way cars west of Casper, like the train you see here on the main line in Worland. When I built the sub-road bed for the grade down to west staging, which will be located under Casper, I built it on a 2% grade. Oops! When pulling a maximum length train up from west staging, the Mikados suffer some wheel slip. Except for right at Grable, staging tracks are all behind or under other towns on the layout. I certainly don't need trains stalling on the leads up from staging, so I went back through and reduced the grade leading into west staging by about 25%. No more wheel slip. This caused another problem, however. Part of what drove the original 2% grade was the need to dive below the west part of the Douglas benchwork at this point. With the new grade, the line would slam right into the end of the Douglas benchwork. That would be hard on equipment. So I spent a couple of days lowering that part of the Douglas benchwork. I'd been thinking about doing that anyway. At my age, it's a lot easier to lay track from above the benchwork than to try to do a decent job of it in a restricted area below the benchwork. It took all of about 2 hours to do once I got started. It was much easier than I thought it would be. Once the benchwork was lowered, I spent a couple of days installing new sub-road bed and then track on the lowered benchwork, all at the new reduced grade. The Douglas base will now be on somewhat longer risers. This work was stopped here about the middle of July. I'll pick it up again this month. Meanwhile, right after I posted the last layout update, I began adding new cars to the layout. I weathered and added 4 on the 3rd of July, 2 boxcars, a hopper, and a reefer. Over the following 4 days, I added 5 more, 2 flats, a gondola, another hopper, and a stock car. Toward the end of the month, an additional 4 cars joined the fleet, 2 tank cars, and 2 more reefers. On the 7th, I stopped all other work and inventoried all my rolling stock yet to be placed on the layout. As of right now, I have 123 additional cars to be built, including 17 boxcars, 9 cabooses, 15 hoppers, 11 reefers, 19 stock cars, and 34 tank cars. I'll be building kits for a long time, but I'm still going to need even more reefers. Now let's move on to where I spent the bulk of my time this month, track work at Grable. During the month, I built about a dozen turnouts and laid nearly all of the track. Here's what Grable looked like as of the 8th. On the 10th, I added the last bit of track on the swing gate and added the first turnout beyond it. I continued with turnout construction and track laying, adding the switches leading to the engine facility on the 16th. By the 28th, I had the first turntable lead installed, and the turntable was powered and tested. The 30th saw completion of the way car track, and on August 1st I was installing the last 2 yard tracks, the car storage tracks. Yesterday I installed the second turntable lead. During the last weeks of July and into early August, I was also wiring the tracks in Grable. I'd install a few yard tracks, then wire them. Yesterday I completed what was left of the wiring, except for the second turntable lead, which I'll do either today or tomorrow. Here's the nearly finished Grable yard. All tracks are in except for the loco supply track near the turntable and the roundhouse tracks. Here's the yard in action. The long train to the left is an eastbound reefer express entering from west staging on its way across the entire division 2 points east. A westbound freight just completed a stop for water and fuel and is departing for Casper. Meanwhile, the local switcher is shuffling cars in preparation for billing the daily Cody local. Back in June, my wife and I drove over to Douglas, where I took a series of photos to be assembled into the backdrop for the Douglas area on the layout. Here's a reduced resolution version of part of the backdrop. On the 17th, Dave is coming down from Basin to help me install it. The last thing for this update, I did do a little bit of work on the area behind Rocky Mountain Drilling. First I added the details to the roof of the small house, then I weathered it a bit. I didn't overdo this since I wanted the house to look like it was only 15 or 20 years old. Then I did the same thing for the bigger house, weathering it just a bit heavier. Just yesterday I worked on this area a bit, adding some bushes, a picket fence around part of the big house, and a car that really needs washed in front of it. Obviously there's still more to do here, but at least I've gotten started. And that brings this layout update to a close. For the month of August, the list of things to do includes more work on the scene behind Rocky Mountain Drilling, building more freight cars, installing the Douglas backdrop, extending the west staging lead under Casper and maybe even starting on the yard there. If there's enough time, I also might try to connect the Cody Branch helix to the Franny end of Grable. Yeah, I know I said that last month too. Powder River and the Wind River Canyon are still calling to me as well. Just for fun, tell me in the comments which of these projects you'd like me to focus on. I'll pick the one most commented on and make sure I spend some time on it during the month. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next month.